So I find myself with a little bit of free time. The only thing I'm really going to do to the engine, and it's not really any modifications to it, I'm going to pull the intake manifold off. Underneath is where a lot of the coolant hose run for the heating system, right? The heater and blower motor, which aren't going to be needed anymore. So I just kind of want to clean all that stuff up. So I'm going to pull the intake manifold off. It's got this manifold fuel heater here. I think I'm going to take that out. I won't need that. And just clean up some of the plumbing, get a look underneath. It'll give me an option or opportunity to run some couple extra wires into that wiring harness for gauges and stuff like that. So let's do that today. Hey, why not?
The intake manifold is a two-piece design, with the top being held in by a few bolts and a few hoses underneath. The lower section slides off easily, complete with the injectors and fuel rail.
So there, I got the intake manifold off. This is kind of the mess that's going on under there. This looks like a coolant slash vacuum line assembly of some kind. It's a pretty rough shape. Somebody's tried to address some broken vacuum hoses at one point. So I'm going to figure out what I need to keep, what I don't need to keep, and then I'll refresh the lines that I need to keep. A lot of these are looking pretty rough. But otherwise it looks pretty clean. Intake looks pretty clean inside.
Care is taken when removing the hoses from the plastic parts that are attached to the engine.
So this is kind of what we're left with here after everything's all said and done. This is a tube, comes right out of the engine block. This looks like your overflow, goes to your little overflow reservoir there. I just got to figure out what the rest of the stuff is for, and what we need and what we don't need. So this is kind of what I got taken out of here. The two pieces of the intake manifold, and then all this junk. The idle control module, which seems to be a German car thing. I'm not sure why, but that's what it is. I need to reuse that. A lot of this stuff, this is the maze of coolant hoses that were underneath the intake manifold. I had looped a couple of them together just to keep it running when I took out the heater core, but garbage. This is like a mix of vacuum and coolant lines somehow tied in here. I'm not quite sure why the complexity was needed for this either. There's been some solid fixes, some good old duct tape on the vacuum lines, zip ties to hold them together. Usually works really well. You're not going to need that. I'll be able to use what I need. I'll be able to hook the idle air control right up to the intake manifold, as well as the crankcase vent. Only thing I'm going to do on here, I'm going to clean this out. It's pretty dirty inside, which is a little bit alarming. And I'm going to take out the throttle body heater right here. We're not going to need that, so I'm just going to take it out, and it's just one less thing to worry about.
It only takes 4 bolts and a couple hoses, and the throttle body is free from the manifold. We can then remove the throttle body heater, which is no longer needed. The intake plenum, as well as the runners, had a large amount of oil residue built up inside. I used brake cleaner and a rag to clean up what I can. I then scuffed all the gasket surfaces to ensure they seal back together nicely. I will reuse some of the heating hoses to tie the existing system back in together in a more simple fashion. I'll use a piece of aluminum tubing to connect two of the hoses together.
So this is what's left of the plumbing. I basically was able to tie this port into this pipe here, this part into here, and I believe these are just these are the recircuit lines that will run down into the expansion tank. If I really wanted to, if they made a block off plate for this, or if I felt like taking that apart to find a way to make a block off plate for that, could have eliminated this whole pipe and capped this opening and just ran this down to the expansion tank. But for now, this reused everything other than the one little coupler I had to make, and it'll work. All right, so it's probably a month later. I just used my better judgment. I ended up getting a few new pieces to begin with. After having it all installed, I just didn't want to take the chances of overlooking some used pieces, and it worked out because I just pulled this unit out of the car. This is the old distribution tube. It came out in 3 separate pieces, so this was the right decision to make. That may have lasted forever in there. It may have lasted 20 minutes in there. We don't know. Better safe than sorry. So I got a new piece. I got some new hose. So I'm basically just going to redo everything all over again and then carry on.
With the cooling system redone, I moved my focus to the thermostat and thermostat housing to make the modifications necessary for our application.
So a common practice on circle track cars is removing the thermostat and just letting the water free flow. Problem is, if you leave that opening too big, your cooling system can work too well or not well enough. So what's commonly done is we'll actually just cut the spring and the guts out of the thermostat and leave the housing. It just acts as a restrictor. Still leaves the water in the radiator long enough to cool it down, and restricts the flow of water. I'm not overly familiar to know if there's many cooling concerns with this, but it's just one less thing. Thermostats will fail from time to time. That could cook your engine. This will prevent that from happening, and if we need to make adjustments to it later, we can make smaller or bigger block offs as well to let it go. So I'm going to try and cut this off and hope I don't take it in the chin. And then that's all we're left with. Just the opening, nothing that can fail, but still enough to let the water cool down on the radiator.
Fresh gasket goes on the thermostat housing.
So I've pulled the radiator out of the car and have mocked up a mount for the electric fan. It's basically all done. Didn't have to make any modifications to the radiator. I was able to use some pre-existing holes and just run up a bracket. I had some of this aluminum trim here. It was like a old window trim or something, just a Z-bar type deal. So all I got left to do is put some real fasteners in here, top and bottom, and then she can go back into the car for the last time.
And for the last time, the radiator gets installed, this time with the fan assembly attached.
that about wraps up the cooling system side of the engine. I guess the oiling system too, added a couple fittings into there. I don't even know if that was the only point of this video. I started it so long ago. I don't even remember. I'll have to go back and watch it. Anyways, this is where we're at cost-wise at this point in the build.
Our current total at $1,090. I spent $32 on cooling system parts, including gaskets, hoses, and various fittings, $36 on a fan, and $10 on oil system fittings, bringing our total to $1,168.
So I'm not quite ready to put the intake manifold and everything back on yet. I'm going to run the wires for the new sensors and the fan into the existing harness and fix the one thing that I've been really neglecting and hoping that it was going to fix itself. And it's this mess here. Yeah, somebody got a little grinder happy cutting through the firewall. That's awesome. Anyways, that's going to be a lot of work to fix. In the grand scheme of things, it's going to be something I was going to do at a later stage because I was too lazy to do it now, but now I'm kind of forced to do it. So I don't know if that's going to be a video or not next time around, just because it's going to be tedious and frustrating and boring connecting all those wires back together. We'll see what happens, but that's kind of my next step. I gotta mentally get ready for that. I've been a sad sack of shit lately, and I don't know why. So anyways, thanks for watching. Racing season starts soon. We were supposed to be at Teston 2 yesterday, but the weather just hasn't been cooperating. So I think we're just gonna throw the car on the track and hope for the best. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If your season's already started, keep me posted, hit me up. Let me know how things are working out for you. Anyways, till next time, thanks for watching.